Because of the stay-at-home orders here in America, tons of people are going stir-crazy sitting at home doing nothing for hours on end. Luckily for gamers, staying at home doing nothing for hours on end sounds like their kind of night and life. The only gamers who seem to be affected heavily by COVID is people who like going to tournaments, people who spectate tournaments, people who like going to conventions, people who like to spectate the cosplay girls at conventions, and people who like to go to arcades. With the gaming industry's focus is becoming less about pouring money into a machine that gives us a chance to beat a game, and more about pouring money into a computer that gives us a chance to get a skin, we find games like Lost Wing in a weird situation. Lost Wing is a shmup-style game where you're a ship going down a corridor and have to dodge and shoot obstacles while trying to build up as many points as possible. I don't think I'd see too many people playing this game even if it was an arcade cabinet, since the only people who play arcade games are in Japan. If this was an arcade game in Japan, though, you'd probably have cards you need to buy in order to save your game's progress, and the ship would be a half-dressed anime girl who totally isn't 13. This is kind of sad to see because Lost Wing is actually pretty damn good for what it is. I usually like to structure my reviews by segmenting them off into story, then gameplay, then art and music, or whatever order works best. So let's start off with the story of the game. There is none. Now that my review structure is destroyed, let's go ahead and make a new one just for this game. I enjoyed my time with Lost Wing for the most part, but I do think there's some pros and cons to it. Some of the cons are a bit of a big deal and made me quite frustrated, so I think I'm going to structure this into the good, the bad, and the ugly piece of fucking shit I hate you, hate you, hate. Let's jump right into what makes this game good, because I'm kind of excited to tell you about it. I don't know if I would put the Lost Wing into the shoot 'em up category because shooting is not heavily emphasized. To explain why, I need to explain one of the main mechanics the game has. Unlike bullet hells and other games in this genre, you don't have an unlimited amount of bullets. Instead, you have a charge you need to keep track of. To shoot and destroy obstacles in your way, you need to use some of this charge. To regain charge, you either need to pick up glowing orbs that give you back your charge, or you need to hold the boost button for a certain amount of time. This already starts to show you on some of the choices you get to make on the playstyle you're going to have. You can avoid boosting through the level and focus more on dodging objects safely and collecting charges, or you could become Boost God the Destroyer and fly through the level shooting objects in your way without any concern for your charge. The objects you shoot will vary and typically drop items for you to collect. Most of the time it's just points to add to your score, but they can drop more bullets for you, making them kind of pointless to shoot. It's best just to dodge those objects or jump right over them. There are also indestructible objects you can't shoot your way through, and bullet charges that are positioned past boost pads, so your playstyle might change depending on the level and layout that you're given. The corridors are procedurally generated, but objects are positioned in a familiar layout that almost always gives you options and choices for how you want to get past them. Do you want to shoot an obstacle that will drop 2,000 points but takes 2 charges to destroy? Or do you want to dodge the obstacle safely since your shots might not hit in time for the object to actually be destroyed? You could die in one hit in this game, so you better choose quickly. This game does go by old arcade rules. You get 3 lives, and once they're gone, you have to restart. After each run, you get a certain amount of points that build up from shooting obstacles, the distance you've gone on the run, combos done, and from pickups. Those are the thousands of points you get from obstacles destroyed that I mentioned earlier. Now you might be asking, Mr. About Games, why should I care about stupid-ass points? That's typically my problem with these arcade-style games where your main objective is just to make number bigger, but Lost Wing handles this issue very well. Points that build up not only add to your high score, but build up an experience meter that unlock new goodies. These goodies include new ships to play as, new levels, and new modes within these levels that are fun twists on the typical formula. And don't worry, Zoomers, you can also unlock skins for your ships. So you want to try to collect as many points as you can to see some of the other content that the game can provide. It's fed to you in a satisfying progression curve that unlocks new things for you right when you needed something to change up the game a bit. Watch out for the pickups though, because not all pickups are created equal. Some pickups will give you points, or a bomb that can destroy all obstacles in the area, or a pickup can make your ship grow larger, thus making it harder for you to dodge incoming obstacles. These negative pickups basically become an indestructible object you want to dodge, but unlike other objects, they just make the game more difficult instead of destroying you outright. Lost Wing is a fast-paced game you need to be in the zone for in order to succeed, and these pickups make a game where you pretty much die in one hit even harder. I say pretty much die in one hit because Lost Wing has a great mechanic where if you don't hit an object directly head-on, but sideswipe the object, you don't instantly die. You just lose your wing and take a hit to your mobility. This is great because I think it isn't as harsh as classic arcade games, but it's still punishing towards sloppy gameplay. Once you lose one wing, you move slower in that direction where you've lost that wing. Losing a wing takes much more planning and coordination to continue with the run, but the game will still give you a chance to regain the wing. Once you've lost a wing, the game coincidentally adds a pickup to gain your wings back after you pass a few obstacles. So losing a wing definitely doesn't mean game over for skilled players, but it does add a level of depth to the second chance that the game is giving you. And yes, you can lose both your wings, making your mobility incredibly hampered. If you lose both your wings, your best strategy is just to pray to the bird gods that your upcoming obstacles aren't so difficult. So far, it probably seems like I'm deeply in love with this game since I've only had so many good things to say about it. And yes, I had a great weekend playing Lost Wing, and I think most people will feel the same way. I say that assuming you only play it for a few days. Once you start to give this game more time and develop your skill, the issues with the game start to pop up. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned anything about the visuals and music so far. They look and sound nice enough. They don't wow or make me giddy with glee or anything like that, but they're definitely a solid part of Lost Wing. I do want to point out that the lighting, while looking cool for the most part, does make it hard to notice objects at times. Sometimes it can be hard to tell whether or not something is a super cool glowing thing that is a part of the track, or it's a super cool glowing thing that can actually kill you. Items that are obstacles are designed to look like they're part of the level design and would genuinely be part of the world, which means that at rare times they can blend into the level itself. These things make it hard for my peripheral vision to tell my brain not to run into these things. Also, when you die and when you switch between certain menus, load times for the game are a tad too long. They don't make you wait long enough to make a sandwich or anything, but they do give you enough time to regret the choices you made on your run and in your relationships. So far, the negative things I mentioned in the bad section of my review seem to be about little things that can irk you over time. Sort of like how the HUD and menu design are interesting, but not designed in a way I'd call good. To explain this, the Smart Bomb logo is slightly too far off the screen to know what you have, and the menus have this you can only go forward thing going on. It can kind of get on your nerves after a little while. There's some things that I think are a little more serious about the game though. Like how tracks are not designed in a straight line but curve further along in the track, so your shots can curve when you try to shoot things from a distance. Your depth perception will also be tested in this game. Objects come at you in a way where you can't be certain if they're in the same lane that your ship is in. This can cause you to die or lose a wing in a way that doesn't really feel fair. There's also a mechanic that doesn't seem to mesh well with the rest of the game. At any time, and without consequence, you can hold the left trigger and slow down time. Slowing down time does help you with dodging any potentially tricky obstacles. This is a strange mechanic because so much else in the game has a lot of risk-reward factors connected to it, but this one doesn't seem to have any of that at all. I guess the balancing here is the fact that doing this time manipulation mechanic kind of pulls you out of the gameplay. With Lost Wing, you need to get locked into its gameplay to succeed, so any aspect of the game that pulls you out of the gameplay might end up in a loss, meaning you want to kind of avoid this stuff at all cost. Sometimes you're forced out of the flow state you enter during this game because at random times, your screen will flash something fucking retarded like Anomaly, and then your screen will do a 360 no-scope on your fucking ship, completely disorienting you and making controlling your ship harder in a game where complete control over your ship is expected, which means that if you're anywhere outside of easy mode on the first level, then you're just fucking done. Then you have to restart. To explain things a little better, at least once during your run, at a random time, the game will just decide to flip your screen around 360 degrees. And I just think whoever came up with this really fucked up this game's experience for me. In a game where all negative modifiers are avoidable, or you have a few options on how you want to take on obstacles, the game just says, lol, fuck you, and does a flipperoo on you. There doesn't really seem to be any strategy for it besides standing up and turning your head along with the game. I'm a gamer. If I wanted to do any standing up, I'd just go be a sportsman or something. Sorry if it seems like I'm overreacting here, but I would say I genuinely died to this stuff about half the times I died in my runs. If I had to give you a rundown of how most of my ship's lives went in this game, I would say the order of events typically goes, start into the level, get really into this game's addicting gameplay, run into the screen flip prompt, desperately hug a wall and hope nothing gets in my way, then an object comes, then I panic and fly headfirst into a laser beam, then I say fuck, then I call somebody a whore. Who exactly gets called a whore changes. Sometimes it's the game, or the devs' mothers. Regardless, somebody's getting called a whore. If I had to give a statistical breakdown of how I died in this game, it'd probably be around 50% of my deaths were because of my own boneheaded moves, 45% of the times I died were because of the screen flip, and 5% of the times I died during boss battles. You might be surprised that there are boss battles in this game since I haven't mentioned them at all. They aren't bad, but I still put them in this section because I didn't want to spoil one of the cool parts of the game for people, and since no one is going to watch this video this far in, I think we're safe. I also didn't say anything about the different abilities of the different ships that you get, because discovering those bosses and ships is kind of part of the fun of Lost Wing. I would say though that it's upsetting that when you face bosses with the final ships that you unlock, the bosses just sort of give up at the tail end of the fight and just take your shots. One of the bosses literally put its hands up to surrender and may as well have said, hey, you leveled up this far, go ahead and beat us. I was genuinely wondering how long it was going to take me to beat this game's bosses in order to do this review, since I have a policy where I have to beat the game in order to review it. Little did I know you just gotta unlock the last ship and survive a screen flip to win. Both of these issues are pretty bad in my mind. The bosses giving up puts a bad taste in my mouth, and the screen flip makes me want to taste the barrel of a gun, but I don't think both of these things are the worst part of the game that I ran into. Those things are just designed like that, and maybe the devs can argue that its inclusion is worth it. The next problem I have feels like a genuine bug. Remember how one of the main mechanics of the game is how you can lose a wing and regain it with a pickup? Well, when you go in for the pickup, there's this very pleasant freeze in the gameplay where everything pauses for about half a second and then skips into place. If you're in a busy area with lots of obstacles when this wing freeze happens, then you're most likely gonna die. Since there's a literal half-second stutter in a fast-paced game where one bad move means your death, this caused me to die in some pretty bad places. It feels worse when picking up your wings is supposed to be a positive, satisfying moment where your skill in the game helped you correct your mistakes. Oh, wait, you're dead now. This isn't the worst thing ever, and this bug is most likely due to an animation that's supposed to play here that just doesn't, so the game doesn't know what to do besides go retarded for a little bit, but I still feel like this is something that needs to be fixed right away. I played this on PS4, so that might just be an issue on that particular console. I was wondering the entire time I played it if Lost Wing would have been better suited towards the Switch. This game is on pretty much every platform except Tesla, but the only console that I thought this game would be great on was the Switch. The game is great to jump in and out of for short bursts of gameplay, and the screen flip might not be a big deal when you can flip your own screen at the same pace. As long as the game performs well and doesn't run on single-digit frames per second, I think the Switch might be the way to go with this game. That being said, if you're interested in picking up this game, I fully recommend it. If you're concerned that the game might not be your kind of thing, the game is a steal at $8 across all platforms. I know I shitted on this game for a little while, but I want to point out that if my biggest issues with the game were fixed, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. But until the game uploads a patch fixing the wing freeze, or makes the screen flip feel slightly fairer, the game is sitting at a 3 out of 5 for me. I do think that this game is a blast, and I kinda got addicted to this game's pace. I really think that a group of friends would have fun getting drunk and taking turns on it for an evening. Sorta like a game at the arcades. Or an escort.